Please note, we would like to make it very clear, we are totally against the form of discipline described in the articles and accounts being used on minors and non-consenting adults. Although some of these accounts are fictional, and others may be an exaggerated reality, none of them are too far from the truth of what really happened back in those days.
Best friend's mom. During junior high, my two best friends' moms still handled misbehavior problems themselves by spanking the offender, whoever it was, on the spot. This meant that both summers the first had my behind spanked by Jerry's mom, Mrs. Trosper, who had two sons and really knew how to turn a behind, and Jim's mom, Mrs. Waldron, who used to birch switch too often and too hard. Both of these moms had routinely spanked my bottom and had no problems correcting my behavior by tanning my bare behind when necessary. On many occasions, I would be the only one being spanked, especially during the summer. In fact, Mrs. Trosper continued to spank Jerry's, mine, and our friends' bottoms with her trusty hairbrush fairly often, once or twice a month, during our freshman and sophomore years and occasionally during our junior year of high school. These spankings always took place in her house. The problem was that I received far more spankings from Mrs. Trosper, at least 2-to-1, than Jerry did during those years. Jim and I had dates for a party on a Friday night, which consisted of the three of us and our dates going to Jerry's house to play games and to dance. As sophomore boys, we were not great dates, and by 8 o'clock we had gone outside to play basketball while our dates were inside talking with Mrs. Trosper. We came back in and Jerry got upset when he saw his mom and the girls on the couch looking at a photo album. Jerry ran to his mom and asked her to put it away, and she told him to sit down and be quiet while the girls were laughing at the album. The first few pages were typical family photos of Jerry as a baby, being diapered or in a bath, and the girls thought it was cute. His mom had several album pages devoted to each year, and there were several of him standing against the wall, displaying an "I've just been spanked" behind. Jerry pulled us aside and told us that his mom had taken pictures after most of the spankings she had given us and that many of them were displayed in the album. We then tried to talk the girls into dancing, but they wanted to see more of the album. When they got to another year, there was a photo showing 5 boys standing against the wall with red behinds showing. The photo was labeled indicating that the boys were Jerry, Sam, Jim, Mike, and Larry. That year in the album consisted of several pages and 2 or 3 more photos of just spanked boys, both with just Jerry and me in them. When we got to another year, the 3 of us were featured in several "I've just been spanked" photos, and Jerry and I were also in one in which we were looking at his mom as we cried and rubbed our behinds, with everything on display. The girls were giggling like crazy when they got to another year, and there were more photos of 4 or 5 boys who had just been spanked, along with several others of Jerry and me and some of just me standing against the wall. This year also featured several photos of both Jerry and me across his mom's knee as we were being spanked. The photos were apparently taken by Jerry's little brother. The year after that only had 3 spanking photos, and they all featured Jerry, his little brother, and my red behinds. The girls were disappointed when the album ended with the year after that and wanted to know if there were more, but we broke into the discussion and tried to get them to dance or play games. The girls could not stop talking about the album, and they began to wonder and ask if we had been spanked after the 6th grade. Jerry's mom assured them that she had continued to spank our behinds as we got older, and often. The girls were not interested in dancing, and we got into a real argument about them wanting to see the 2nd volume of the photo album, which ended up with Jerry yelling at his mom. Mrs. Trosper got up and left the room, and when she returned she had the 2nd photo album and her big wooden hairbrush, which she sat on the coffee table next to the album. The girls sat down and started looking at another year, which had numerous photos of our red behinds, especially Jerry's and mine, but a few of Jim and other friends. The most embarrassing photo sequence was one of Jerry as he was being spanked, followed by the same sequence as Jim and I were each spanked. It ended with a photo of the 3 of us standing against the wall rubbing our behinds, with then another of us with facing his mom as we cried. The girls spent several minutes on that page. We tried to get the girls to dance, but the photo album had their attention, and they really enjoyed looking at each year, to see if we were still spanked on our behinds, even through our freshman year. That year I was featured in 6 or 7 of the 10 spanking photos, including one when I was facing the camera which got a lot of giggles and pointing. The last 3 pages were blank, and the girls were really disappointed. Jerry's mom had an idea and went to get a box of photos from this year and asked the girls if they would like to help her select the photos for the album. The 4 of them rummaged through the photos, which included birthdays and vacations and a nice selection of Jerry and his brother and their friends being spanked or standing against the wall after being spanked. The girls had a lot of fun picking which photos would go into the book, and were sure to include a lot of ones with our behinds showing. The girls saw numerous photos of us being spanked and several with frontal views after a spanking, but only selected 9 or 10 for the album, and my well-spanked behind was displayed in almost all of them. When the girls had finished bringing the album up to date, Mrs. Trosper picked up the hairbrush and ordered the 3 of us into the kitchen. She then turned Jerry over her knee and blistered his behind with the hairbrush in front of the girls until he was crying and begging her to stop. When she was finished with Jerry, she had his date stand against the wall. She then spanked Jim's behind followed by mine, and when she was finished the 3 of us were standing against the wall with our obviously very sore behinds on display, as she took our photo. She then had us come over to where our dates had been waiting and watching our spankings with a lot of interest, and she handed Jerry's date the hairbrush and told her to give him a good hard-bottom spanking. Judy sat on the chair and turned Jerry over her knee, and used the hairbrush to give him 30 swats, which when applied to his already sore red behind left him in tears again, while his mom carefully documented this spanking with her camera. Then Jim's date, Carol, spanked him until he was crying and was made to stand next to Jerry against the wall in tears, and it was my date's turn. My date Pam had me stand beside her while she smacked the hairbrush on her hand and talked about what I was about to get. She turned me over her knee. She held me across her knee and made me wait, before applying the hairbrush to my obviously sore red behind, and when she did start spanking she really let me have it repeatedly until I was sobbing before she was done. The other girls had given Jerry and Jim each 30 swats, but Pam gave me 50 hard swats, and I do mean hard, which when applied to my already sore behind left me in tears. Smack, 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 smack. When the 3 of us had all been spanked by our dates, Jerry's mom took photos of us standing against the wall, with our dates standing next to us posing as they smacked our behinds. The rest of the night the 3 of us remained dressed only in our shirts and underpants, as we danced and played cards, with occasional interruptions for a spanking from his mom or our dates when they thought we needed one.